Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 2 p.m. East Coast time, anyway, session of CME Palooza Spring. I'm Derek Warnick, and this is, let me bring up our slides. This is our You Can Do It, Busting Myths About the Use of Audience Response Technology session. Two panelists today, Christina Billings, coordinator for CME at Des Moines University, and Vanessa Gray, who's the director of CME at the same university. Before we get started, of course, the traditional reading of our sponsors, our gold sponsor, Academic CME, our silver sponsors, ASIM, Creative Educational Concepts, and Prova Education. And our bronze sponsors, Answers in CME, ACHL, Catalyst Medical Education, Catamount Medical Education, Clinical Care Options, CMEology, Global Academy for Medical Education, Global Education Group, Helio Education Lab, Integritas, Infograph Ed, Postgraduate Institute for Medicine, Primary Care Network, PVI, RedMed Ed, Army Eye Medical Education, complete with their updated logo, Thistle Editorial, and Vindico Medical Education. There are 3 ways that you can ask questions, as always. Actually, I'm changing that to 2 ways. So you can use the ASIM text line to send in a question, 267-666-0CME. We have the link for our Google Slides way to ask questions. It is not working for me for whatever reason. So it doesn't look like much has been entered there, but just don't use that one. use the text line or tweet it in. That works better. And you can tweet your question using the CME Palooza hashtag. And lastly, our speaker disclosure slide. Any opinions, discussions, and/or conclusions expressed are our own, and they do not represent an endorsement by or a position of our employer, its parent company, or affiliates. And with that, and just one quick note, this session is going to be great, and they are using polls everywhere. And I just want to give a quick note about that. I'm glad that they are trying this. I mean, I love Google Hangouts, obviously. We do all of our sessions this way. It is not the most user-friendly when it comes to things like this sort of technology, using polls everywhere. And the reason for that is there is a little bit of a delay. So when we are talking here in our Hangout and what you see on the video, there's like a 20-second delay, 15-20-second delay. So when we do something like using polls everywhere or any sort of polling, the tricky part is that there is that built-in delay. So you put up the poll, and then you have to wait 20 seconds until your audience even sees that. But they're giving it a try, and we're going to do the best that we can. And I'm happy that they're even trying it out, and thankful for that. So I just wanted to make that note. If there are any sort of delays and glitches, it's not their fault. It's it's the Hangout. So anyway, at this point, I will turn it over to you, Christina and Vanessa, to take it away.
Thank you, Derek. That was a great introduction. Now we don't really have to introduce ourselves, but I'm Christina.
And I'm Vanessa.
Vanessa, get a little closer. We're having a little trouble hearing you. Sorry.
My name is Vanessa. Hi, everybody.
Okay, since we're going to be using our PowerPoint a lot during our presentation, and we'll need to use the web portal for our polls, I'm not going to show the webcam for very long. I'm going to show you our faces here at the beginning, and then I'll bring this back up at the end for questions. But you'll see our slides and our web portal as we progress through the presentation. So I'm going to flip on back over to that. So as Derek mentioned, we're here to talk about how you can do it, busting myths about the use of audience response technology. A few learning objectives that we're going to do. We're just going to talk about what an audience response system is, how we can use it, what gets in the way of our success or barriers, and strategies to overcome those barriers. And then how we can use audience response to benefit our program and meet accreditation with commendation criteria. So before we really get started, I would like to give you all a second to go ahead and get logged in, participate in the polling. because this presentation is about busting the myths. I hope that you'll participate and get a feel for how easy this really can be. I'm going to suggest that you participate through a browser if you're able, on your phone or on a laptop or tablet. It just allows better interaction. You can see the questions live as we proceed through the presentation. Text message is great, that's fine. You just don't see the questions on your screen. So you want to text DMUCME to 22333, or open your browser and navigate to polev.com/DMUCME. It'll only take you a second to get registered. So if you've done it right, you'll see something like this, something like one of these pictures on the right here. I also want to mention quickly that here at Des Moines University, we use Poll Everywhere. So this is a polling platform, and we'll mention it a few times throughout the presentation, but this does not mean that Poll Everywhere is the best or only platform. There's many options for polling and audience engagement. This is just the platform that the powers at Des Moines University selected, and so these are also just our personal experiences in this office. We do realize that every office is different, and while everything may not be fully applicable to your organization or role, we do hope that you're able to take something away from the presentation today. Hopefully you're all registered, because we're going to jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and flip on over to our polls here. Okay, so throughout the presentation, we'll demonstrate a few different polling questions. This particular one happens to be multiple choice. All you need to do is either, if you're on your browser, you'll click the response that you would like to submit. If you're texting, you will text one of these letters over here in for your submission also. So which of the following most closely represents your organization? As Derek mentioned, there seems to be a lag between, but I actually don't think it is a full 20 seconds because responses started coming in pretty quickly here. Keep grabbing the wrong mouse. All right, hospitals and health systems. Awesome. Des Moines University, as the name might apply, is a medical school, but we will give you a little bit of background on our organization here in just a minute. So one more poll. We're going to try out an open-ended question here. So your favorite childhood toy. Okay, so open-ended questions, you'll just text or type exactly what you want your response to be. They will start popping up on the screen. Vanessa and I were talking about this topic the other day, and although we're only a few, 5 to maybe 8 years apart, our toys were quite different. I'm right on the brink of, I guess, the first generation to have technology as a child. So one of the things I remembered was the Tamagotchi toy. I always keep in my locker to check on in between classes in middle school, and hers were not a technology-based toy. So I'm seeing a lot of that popping up in here, Atari, and then we have like outdoor stuff, sit and spin the jump rope, books, great answer. So it's just, this is fun. So I just wanted you to see how an open response type question would work for your audience. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one and keep moving on in our presentation.
So now a little bit about Des Moines University. I wanted to bring this up because we are a health sciences university, and so our target audience is quite.
Hey, Vanessa, sorry, having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, our target audience, I was saying, our target audience for the university is quite vast. We are a medical health sciences university, and so I've listed out our programs there. And this is important because, as Christina mentioned, with COI question. We have students who are in their very early 20s to older adults who are, 30s and 40s and plus that actually come back to school to either receive a doctorate by expanding their education, like our physical therapists, or we have individuals who come back for the master's program. And what this means is that when they were initially in school, the way in which they learned was very different in which the education is taught now. And so now learning is in an active capacity. And so if you were to
Hey,
incorporate—
Vanessa, sorry, apologize for stopping you. It's just not quite picking you up. You're cutting in and out. Maybe you guys will need to slide over just a little bit farther so you're closer to it.
I'm right up against the computer.
Oh, I can't see you. So that was actually a little better. So I think we got you now.
Okay.
Oh, that's much better. That's good. Right wherever you are right now, stay there.
All right. Any closer, I'm looking into the computer, so I'll do my best. So I can't remember where I left off. Here's a list of our programs, and then also we are a continuing education office, and so I have listed out our education accreditations that we have. We are a nursing provider. We are a provider of proprietary credit. We are an AMA PRA Category 1 provider. We are a state accredited provider through the Iowa Medical Society, the American Osteopathic Association, and then we also provide credit for physician assistant clinical instructors. And this is important because, as many of you may be aware, some of the accreditation requirements are now stating that interactive technology is a component for continuing education. And I think about at least half of them have some sort of interactive technology audience engagement component as an accreditation requirement. Additionally, this is just a little bit of a slide that we're very proud of. Our numbers, as you can see there, we are a very busy office. We award a lot of credits, and we have a lot of educational offerings. And so in 2018, we had 549 educational activities that were either a direct accredited program or it was a joint providership. And I bring this up because while we are very proud of our numbers, to say that it is possible, regardless if you do 2 educational activities a year or if you do 549 like we do. And Christina's going to talk a little bit more about that. But we do not incorporate some sort of interactive component into all of our activities because it's just not possible. And so we as an office have set a threshold. And so if you are wanting to do this in your program, I encourage you to start small, just like we did, because there's absolutely no way that you would be able to incorporate something like an audience response system into all of your activities.
All right, so we're going to try out a word cloud this time. I want to know what audience response means to you. What do you think of when you see the words audience response? Let's go to the next one here. Okay, so this is active and ready for you. One word at a time. You can submit more. You can submit multiple times if you would like. Just what do you picture when you think of an audience response? Or how can you use this platform? How does it help your participants? What are you scared of? Are you scared? Unreliable, I see it there. Things like that. That's what I want to hear. And I really also want you to see how cool a word cloud can be. I really love this this polling option. Very nice. Outcomes, impact, interactive, fun. That's a nice one. Money, yes, very true. Very cool. Okay. All right. I am, just for the sake of time, gonna go ahead and close this out, but I'm going to let this sit on the screen for another second here so that you can really look at these responses. There's some really good positive ones like engagement here. There's also some scary looking ones like expensive and clickers and just things that you don't really want to have to deal with. But we are going to talk about how to maybe mitigate some of those things. So I'm going to flip back over to our presentation here. All right, so being familiar with adult learning principles is more or less inherent in our roles in continuing education, and our previous presentation went into pretty good detail about cognitive methods and making it more appropriate for adult learners. I won't go too deep into this, but I did want to touch on it. Just a very basic fact that adult learning should be high impact and active learning where the learners are engaged and directly involved in their learning process. And this is the big part of the why behind the use of audience response. It's a great way to engage the audience, help them more actively participate in their learning experience. And like we saw in the last on our word cloud, people think of clickers when they think of audience response. But the good news is that audience response as a technology platform has moved from like a clicker-based system to mobile platforms like we're using today, where you can use your own devices. It's significantly cheaper, it's more accessible, much easier to maintain, and it offers more creative engagement opportunities, as we're going to see as we go throughout this presentation. A key point here that I do want to be sure to say is that audience response does not have to be technology-based. People do respond more freely when their responses are anonymous, and in my opinion, it's neat to see the results in the graph on the screen. But things as simple as using your hands or colored flashcards, or maybe even like these smiley face guys here, are great ways to still engage with your audience and get them thinking. So don't feel like it has to be a technology-based platform, even though that's a lot of what this presentation focuses on. And as Vanessa kind of already alluded to, our office here at Des Moines University included audience response in our strategic plan this year. As she mentioned, it is not 100% of our activities. For our first round here, our goal is to incorporate it in at least 10% of the activities. But in the past, we didn't really pursue the inclusion of audience response in our activities. We had 100 clickers that we would hand out and try to get back. We only had 2 staff members. The clickers require batteries. Software updates aren't pushed automatically to those clicker platforms like they are with these mobile platforms. All of this together made it not realistic for our small department. But for the past about year now, Des Moines University has been using Poll Everywhere. So we're starting to be able to more easily incorporate it into our activities. And again, we wanted the goal to be realistic, but also make a difference. So for this first year, it's 10% of our activities. So I want to know from you, how often do you utilize audience response in your activities? Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be technology-based, but I want you to consider times when you intentionally try to change things up from the traditional like lecture and listen style of presentation. So how many times a year do you really try to change things up and do things a little bit differently? Never. 1 to 3, 4 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 plus. I'm gonna unlock it. I had lots of responses before this, and we have 12 right now. So just pick a response and send a few more in. So the cool thing about this platform also is even though the timer is expired, I can still let you submit a few more responses. And personally, I like to not show the results until I'm ready to move on, but you can also have the live graph going, which I can go ahead and do, and we'll see if a few more come in. Okay, so a little bit of both. Yeah, I love that so many of you are already using it a lot, and good for you also on these people down here. Hopefully we can help boost your numbers up a little bit throughout this presentation. All right, so next I want to hear about your concerns. Ooh, there we go. I'm gonna pop back over to this poll here. All right, so for those of you with tons of experience, what do you still worry about? So this is an open-ended question. You can just type out your response. What do you still worry about when you go to use an audience response system? If you haven't ventured down this path yet, what is stopping you? Spotty internet. Very nice. Yes, time consuming. Training faculty, that's a big one. Yes, speakers are afraid. That is what I run into also. How do you get them to participate? Yep, older audience members, very good. Troubleshooting. Another one about the speakers and faculty. Troubleshooting, technology. These are my big ones also. Users are mostly good. Yes.
We know all about technology fails here at CME Palooza.
Yes. Okay, they're all kind of falling into a few different categories here. So my hope is that we can bust a few of these myths today, or at least give you some strategies to overcome them and feel more comfortable in using the technology or not technology or hand raising, that type of stuff while you are in your activity. All right, so out of that list, I'm gonna dare say it, but I feel like what this all boils down to when utilizing an audience response system is fear. A big one is the fear that the process will be time consuming or complicated. We all have competing priorities. I totally get that. The good news is once you get going, it's actually really easy. And I think the people on the 15 plus side of the spectrum would agree with me on that it's really not that bad once you jump into it and just give it a shot. A cool thing about Poll Everywhere that I really enjoy is that you can set templates for your polls. You can also copy visual settings to a whole group of polling questions, so you don't have to edit every single question to make it match the speaker's slides. You can just copy a whole set one up and copy it to your whole list of questions, and then all you have to do is type out the questions and the answers, and you're good to go. So the time-consuming part, I do understand. I was worried about that also. It turns out it's really not time-consuming to get it set up. Competing priorities, though, can also include the price, as we saw in our word cloud earlier. And I get that. There are some free options, but for the sake of that, we'll just skip the free because price is a legitimate concern. Something that we have done in the past is work with other like-minded departments and split a subscription if you happen to have somebody that you can share the cost with. Again, with the free programs, it's fine. Some of them do limit the number of responses that you can receive per poll. Like maybe you can only get 50 responses. But as you can see, even today, we're getting about probably 30-ish. So, and it's a pretty big audience, and it will still work. It'll still work. And if you include it in your strategic plan, sometimes that can help you secure funding as well. So next, how do you gain activity director and speaker buy-in? How do you get the speakers to want to pursue it? In our experience, both parties might think it will be complicated and just not want to push the issue. If you can get the activity director to back the initiative, it's more likely that you'll also get the speakers to participate. If you have both you and the activity director coming at the speaker, encouraging them to create a couple questions for their presentation. Something that we have put together is a handout, which I will pull up really quick here. We have this handout to show that we provide to speakers that more or less gives them instructions on how to create their presentation. Really, all they have to do is insert a question on a slide within their presentation where they want the question to be administered, and we will format it for them. We take all the pressure off. All they got to do is stick the questions in. We'll format it. I show them what it looks like when they present it, take a little bit of that uncertainty off. And then with Poll Everywhere, anyways, if the presenter does not have Poll Everywhere on their device, they will see it will look like this with a little error that you really can't see down here that talks about the ability to see live content during the presentation. And I will get questions saying, oh, I think there's an error. So I include things like this in the handout also. Rest assure them, just to keep them at ease. Also in here is our few guidelines and best practices that we prefer. We really try to encourage them to be creative and go outside of the box, not just check knowledge on the things that were just presented, but get more creative in their use and expand it and think outside of the box. And so finally, when it comes to the speakers, how do you get them to send you their slides in time? This is probably the biggest barrier for me personally, is it's very common for someone to express interest in wanting to use the audience response system, but when it comes time to actually getting their slides to me, they tell me it's just not going to happen. So within our handout and when we're initially talking with the speakers, we request to receive the slides 3 business days in advance. But even if they can get me their slides the day before the presentation, I can make it happen. I realize that's also still a barrier. Like, for instance, I made edits to this presentation this morning, so I get it. Cool thing about at least Poll Everywhere and a lot of online platforms is the polling questions are formatted through the internet. Like you see here, I can escape out of this and you'll see all of our poll questions out in our portal, and then you can literally just pop them back into your PowerPoint if they do happen to make edits last minute. So it does work out. It's fine, but still, what if you don't get the speaker or the slides until they arrive on site at the conference? So something you could potentially do is write a couple questions for a pre and post test at the very least, maybe based on the speaker's learning objectives. I realize, though, I want to say this, that that's not always possible and perhaps even not usually possible to do this. And it just depends on how well the objectives are written. But so again, some activities are not going to lend well to audience response. So it's important to start low and just keep your goals realistic, keep your expectations realistic. And finally, the technology complications that freak us all out. So it may be complicated, the fear that it may be complicated for speakers, participants, and even for ourselves. One is properly formatting the presentation slides. What if you forget a setting or forget to set the timer? For me, this is where the settings template is very useful. And then something else that I do is once I insert the the polling questions into the PowerPoint, I'll just click through the PowerPoint and make sure that the slides activate properly. Another complication could be facilitating the audience response for the speakers or like babysitting the presentation. Poll Everywhere is cool because it allows you to control the polls from
Christina, you're starting to fade out just a little bit.
Okay.
There you go.
Poll Everywhere is cool because it allows you to control the polls from your computer while the presenter is on a separate computer, so it's live in between the two platforms. I can only speak to Poll Everywhere on that one, but it just really takes that pressure off of having to get up and go up to the computer and try to help and troubleshoot. I can do it right from my computer, and if the slide doesn't activate or something like that, people don't even notice that something happened. And so finally, the interaction with the technology, like a few of you mentioned, it might be difficult for teachers or student troubleshooting live during the presentation. Intimidating to figure that out on the spot, right? So.
Christina, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so weird. I don't know. Sometimes you're talking, it's fine, and then it's almost like something is covering your mic, and all of a sudden it just goes away. Just go ahead, start talking again. We'll see if
Okay. Okay, I can promise I'm not moving back and forth, but I am
I
trying.
believe you. Actually, that sounds good now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. All right. The good thing is with many audience response platforms, they're very user-friendly, like very user-friendly. So if all else fails, you can always have a set of flashcards on hand or something like that with your little smiley face guys and go old school. But the technology complications in reality really aren't there anymore with the clickers. We used to have problems getting clickers to register and actually connect to the computer and display the results on the screen and all of that sort of stuff. But since we have moved to this online platform, I don't even want to jinx myself, but we haven't had any issues technology-wise, which has been really great. So now that I just said we don't have any technology issues, there is one case study that I'm going to go ahead and bring up. I'll give you the background and then I'll pop over to the poll. So basically what it boils down to is an after hours activity that required a security update with an administrator password. So we have a quarterly meeting with Iowa Physiological Society. It's held from 7 to 9 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. And there's no AV support after hours unless we specifically request it. And of course, we're professionals in the AV world, so we don't request extra support for our after hours activities, or so we think that we're pros anyways. And on this particular evening, there was a security update with PowerPoint and the Poll Everywhere add-on. It required an administrator password, which we did not have, and we had to quickly make a decision as to how to proceed. So I want to know, what are some ways you could have handled the security update? If you cannot get the administrator password, what are some other things that you can do? This is an open-ended question, so you can just type in your response. Use the web browser since, yes, this was a problem with the PowerPoint add-on. So, and test the PowerPoint before cry. Yes, love it. Call the IT desk. Well, no one was at our IT desk, unfortunately. And we didn't think we would need the extra assistance because we were so confident. Yes, another device. Love it. Borrow another computer. Panic. Yes. Show of hands. Very good. Yeah, it's still active. Oh, wait, no, it's not. There it is, still active. Hook up a laptop that has the update. Yes. Do nothing, okay. All right. So I'll kind of tell you a little bit about what we tried to do. Dragons, okay, well then. Yeah, happy.
Great option.
The new Game of Thrones. All right, well, so like I said, the problem was the integration of Poll Everywhere into PowerPoint. So first thing would be to do it with the web browser, but then So let me also say really quick, the security update required you to click OK every time you go to a poll in order for the poll to activate. The poll still worked, but you had to click OK in order for it to work. You test it in the room. We do test the presentations beforehand, but this security update had to have been pushed like right at the end of the day or something like that. Try another device. We do have our personal laptops available and ready to go. That was an option. It's not what we did for this particular situation. Open the poll through the web browser. That is a great idea. That would definitely alleviate, well, I can't necessarily say definitely, but that would alleviate your PowerPoint issue, but you would need to toggle back and forth between the two screens like we are doing today, which could be more complicated for the speaker. The show of hands is great. For this particular activity, we had an online audience also, so we wanted to try to avoid that and try to use the polls as best we could, and so that they could still participate. And so this group is very laid back. The instructor actually just offered to click OK on the dialog box and continue on through. So we were lucky there, but had they not done that, I would have probably sat up at the computer and toggled back and forth between her PowerPoint and the polls for her. So that that other device or the web browser are really good options for this.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about why you should be using an audience response, either technology or some other form to engage your learners. Aside from following the adult learning principles to offer more engaging and active learning, why should we pursue the integration of audience response into our activities? Or, better said, what's in it for me? As director of the program, I'm constantly making sure that we are in compliance with our accreditation bodies. And one of the bodies that we report to is the ACCME. I'm sure many of our audience members today are also go through the ACCME for their continuing education credit. So using the audience response system demonstrates compliance with a couple of accreditation criteria, and I have them listed out here. I won't go through them. You're probably familiar with them, but the use of the audience response system can be helpful in demonstrating compliance with the 13 basic criteria. However, what we all strive for and what my office currently has is accreditation with accommodation. That is a 6-year accreditation versus the 4-year accreditation. And if I have the opportunity to complete a whole packet work of paperwork every 6 years, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to make sure that not only do I have a high quality program, but it reduces some of the administrative needs of my department. So unless you'll be receiving an accreditation decision between now and November 2019, you'll be working with the new menu of accommodation criteria, which is criterion 23 through 38. And then accreditation with accommodation demonstrates compliance with the seven accommodation criteria plus 1 from outcomes category for a total of 8 criteria. And then specifically criterion 35 is creativity and innovation in evolution of CME programs, and it recognizes that providers must meet evolving needs of their adult learners by innovations in educational approach, design, assessment, or use of technology. And then also criterion 36 is demonstrates improvement in the performance of learners. And we can also find likely ways to utilize audience response system as a tool to demonstrate compliance with several other criteria as well. Specifically number 33, which is engagement of research and scholarship. And depending on where you are in your cycle, I think what the self-study auditors are looking for is there's going to be an intent for change. And so if you are currently not able to implement a formal software like we have here at the university, if your 2-year plan or your 3-year plan is to start engaging more audience response opportunities, I would actually put that in there as a future plan and then maybe list why you have not done that yet. The ACCME or your accreditation body may follow up with you to ensure that what you said in a certain period of time is actually happening. But one of the purposes of the self-study document is an intent to change, just like we do with our own learners and our educational offerings. They want to make sure that the CME program is evolving as well. So don't feel like if you can't exactly meet the criterion now, but you plan to in the future, please still include that in your self-study. The problem? Nope. Okay, Christina.
All right. I'll go ahead and so just a quick comment then to go off of what Vanessa was just talking about is expanding your use of your audience response. Just a quick note about the types of polling questions with this online platform. The ones we use most are multiple choice, ranking, open-ended. The word clouds are really neat. You can do clickable images, which is very cool with like x-rays or things like that. And then my favorite is competitions, which we'll get into here in a little bit. I want to comment that open-ended questions, you can moderate the responses depending on your platform, but it's just not something that we want to have to do. So when an open-ended question is asked, either we as the CME team or the speaker will make an announcement that the expectation is for professional responses only. We are careful about the types of questions that are asked open-endedly, but this is a great way to allow anonymous engagement, get dialogue on sensitive topics, things like that. Something that we did that was fun is we had a sensitive question and we did an open-ended response for it. And then we had the participants at their tables pick one of the responses to discuss. No one had to know who brought it up. They didn't have to speak out in front of everybody. They talked about it in their smaller groups, but we still got that dialogue over those sensitive topics. So, of course, the purpose of audience engagement is or of polling is to engage with the audience. There's common strategies like the knowledge check and pre to post tests, but I want to encourage more novel uses of audience response like topic guidance, gathering more immediate feedback. And I love the competition. That's a great one. It gets people really excited. But I want to emphasize that it shouldn't be just about what they've learned during the presentation. For the best learning and the best outcomes, it can and really should guide the topics around the flow of the presentation. It might be more difficult and time-consuming to prep yourself, I guess, for the possibility of multiple ways that your presentation can go. But really, if you're trying to offer really quality, engaging activities, you should really try to use audience response in a more novel way. And so finally, reducing your administrative burden. I'm sure that's something we all want to hear about. I'm going to flip on over to a quick poll for that. So most CE offices are understaffed and under budgeted. So for those of you who are regularly using polls, how can you use it to reduce your administrative burden? What are some things that you do currently, like for your program, not just with the audience? How can you use this platform to make it easier on yourself? Again, you can send as many thoughts as you have, just one thought at a time. It's open-ended, so as many words as you would like to use. Sign in is something that we do. I also love the phones instead of keypads. It makes it a lot more user-friendly. Outcomes measurement, yes, evaluations is really great, especially with a big breakout conference. You can collect feedback on every session right at the end of the session, which is really great. Yes, your outcomes report's very good, and I do really love Poll Everywhere. It's been really great. Yep, instant evaluation, exactly, without a lot of work. Yes, evals, evals, evals. So we're seeing a lot of evals. I know we're getting a little close on time, so I'm going to go ahead and close this off and move on back over here. All right, so from this list that we were just talking about, take a minute really quick, jot down a couple ideas that you have for how you can improve your program or incorporate audience response more frequently and easily in your activities. Jot down 3 ways or talk with your team that you're dealing with, however you're doing this. This particular slide right here is a pull from that activity that we did in February with the Iowa Physical Therapy Association. This was initiated by the speaker herself. She included this question because she just wanted to see how they received her presentation. And I just think this is really neat because you have that instant feedback, as several of you mentioned on the last slide. It's just very nice. And then you have this data right there, right at the activity. You don't have to try, you don't have to summarize evaluations, you don't have to send out a link afterwards, that type of stuff. So a big one is the activity evaluation. Another thing that we use it for is signing participants in. We'll have instructions at the table and have a poll open for 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of the presentation so people can text in their names. You can also use it like we did a mandatory reporter training that is 4 hours long and it's broken into 2 parts and there's a long break in the middle of it. So how can you ensure that people come back after the break and easily collect their names? So another great way to do that is with the audience response. So those are common ways that we use it. We use it in a few different other ways, but I am excited to get to this. So this is what I'm going to go ahead and move on. So this is my favorite. You can probably guess. We're going to go ahead and do a myth busting competition so that you can see how easy this can be to participate in. One thing I need to say is that competitions must be participated in from your web browser. It cannot be done via text message, which is a little bit unfortunate, but the experience is, in my opinion, better from your browser anyways. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip on over to that. All right, and so you can see here, you just add your questions. It's very easy to do. This is a new feature with Poll Everywhere. So at the current time, you cannot change the color settings on it, but that's okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So right now on your browser, you should be seeing a way to enter your screen name, I guess is what they call it, whatever you want your points to show up as. And as you may have just saw flash across the screen, speed counts. So you can earn up to 1,000 points per question. The longer it takes you to respond, the less points you get. So it's very, very fun when you do this at activities. So there's only 4 questions. It's pretty brief, basic competition. So I don't know, hopefully we come out with a few actual leaders on our leaderboard, but we'll see. So the way that this goes is you start on a home screen, give your participants a few minutes to go ahead and enter their screen names. Then you advance, you get to see the question, and then you'll advance again and see the answer choices. So first I'll read you the question. Fill in the blank. Alaska is blank the size of Texas. 45 seconds to respond. Alaska is blank the size of Texas. And if we get up to 20 responses, I'll go ahead and close the poll anyways and go ahead and move on. So Alaska is blank the size of Texas. And the cool thing about competitions, in my opinion, is that your points are reduced the longer it takes you to respond. So you don't, you're discouraged anyways from using Mr. Google to find all of your answers. So I thought that that was a really neat feature. All right, 2 times the size, and that is correct. And I didn't even have to do anything. All I did was click to the next screen and it automatically shows the correct response. And so here is how the leaderboard looks. Scott Govers thinks that's funny. Okay, so we
No idea who that is.
No, I have no idea who that would be. All right, well, good for you, Marcy, Derek, and MRB. Everybody else, this is awesome. We've got 2 more questions. Here we go. So, a little bit of CME history. When was the first mandatory clinician continuing education program initiated in the United States? 1908, 1934, 1942, 1958. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go. Ooh, earlier than a lot of you thought. So it was 1934 with a urology program. Urology was the first to mandate continuing education in the United States. Aha, we have 1 leader right now. So congratulations, PCAP. Going to go ahead and go on to the next. So, which team topped the bracket for the 2019 March Madness basketball tournament? Who won March Madness last month? NCAA basketball tournament.
There's a problem with your question.
Is there?
Yeah, the correct answer isn't on here.
Okay, maybe that's why people are confused. I thought, well, I looked up the bracket. It must not have been right. Maybe it was a past year or something like that. So sorry, go ahead and guess. I'll go ahead and move on then. Well, see, everyone still got it right. So I thought it was the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I don't know. Maybe I didn't
They
have
were
it
in
right
the finals, but they did not win.
I must have just been looking at one side of the bracket. So I thought Texas Tech and Gonzaga were
Trick
the
question,
2
though.
finalists.
Trick question. Good one.
All right, well, thanks, and congrats to the 73% of you who still got it correct. All right, PCAP holding strong. All right, so here's a fun one. In a recent CME Palooza email, Derek mentioned that a certain person was elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame. Who was this special person?
Oops.
Oh, was it? And it was Virginia, that one, so our bad. But they must have known Virginia wasn't on there, so Texas Tech must have been the closest. We're clearly not sports fanatics.
There's no judging in CME Palooza.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and advance because I want to do a conclusion real quick. So yes, very good. People read the email. Very nice. So 69%. It was Bobby Jones, Philadelphia 76ers that he mentioned. So what do we come out with? Yay, congratulations, PCAP. Marcy and MRB held in strong throughout, but this was just really fun. It's a fun thing to do, these competitions. So, all right, couple final thoughts here. We do have some case studies.
Yeah, and I'm going to wrap you up 2 to 3 minutes, and then we got to move on. Okay.
Yeah, this is it. So this is the end. I was reminded of this quote at a conference last week, and I thought it was pretty appropriate for here. For me, this quote meant, I think, therefore I am making myself miserable. I feel like that's something we can all a little bit relate with. If we think that the use of audience response is going to be difficult, we're going to freak ourselves out, and we're probably going to avoid integrating it all together. But it's not stressful. It doesn't need to be stressful. Again, it also does not need to be technology based. I think it's very cool and useful if it is, but it doesn't have to be. And it can actually reduce some of the burden on your CE program if you give it the opportunity to. So sometimes it's hard to take the leap and try something new. My advice, like Vanessa said, would be to start small and go from there. Our goal is 10%, not 100%. And some activities just are not going to lend well to audience response. But if they do, you should give it a shot. You'll find that it's easier than you thought it was. Make the use of audience engagement about more than just checking a box on your accreditation self-studies. Use it, embrace it, go for it, do it right, and really do it, go for it. I'm gonna go ahead and bring us to our contact information here and pull up our webcam in just a second in case you want to write this down, but gonna go ahead and open it up if there are any questions. And if you think of anything, you're always free to email us or give us a call. We love to share the love when it comes to audience response and engagement.
Great. There were a couple questions, but you pretty much covered them, I think. Plus, we are at almost the top of the hour, and Scott's going to yell at me if I don't wrap this up soon. So I'm going to bring us to a close. Thank you both. That was really great. It really was. I have to say the audience response part went way better than I was expecting. So I think that was a fantastic commercial and demonstration for using an audience response system. It was good. People responded. I never know if people are going to respond or not.
We never know either. So thank you, everybody, for going ahead and taking stake.
Exactly. I thought it went great. Although we had some audio issues at the beginning, but we got those figured out, and it was great. Thank you. Let me go over my ending slides here real quick for everyone, and then they can move on. One, if you can at some point today, if you haven't already, please take our survey. It's on our live page. It's 7 questions. It will take you about 30 seconds to do. But we do really use that feedback in putting together sessions, including, not that we put together this session, but there was some interest in this topic. And so when they suggested it, we thought, that sounds great. And then lastly, in order to view the next session, which is, hold on. Oops, that's the wrong page. 3 p.m. Nobody puts outcomes in the corner, of course. Nice Dirty Dancing reference there. Coming up at 3 o'clock, all you have to do is refresh your screen. At 3 o'clock, the video will go live. And our last update is, for those wondering, the Phillies are winning 2-0 in the bottom of the 6th inning. So no need to turn on Watch CME Palooza instead. That said, I think that is it for all of us. Thanks again to you, Christine and Vanessa, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Mm-hmm.